So a very good morning and a warm welcome to each and every one. Thank you so much for being on time. And I'm your host for the day, Sejal Shibe, Senior Manager Cybersecurity Projects and Operations at CyberFrat. And we are here today for the webinar discussion on the topic Unlocking the Power of Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management Services, Enhancing the Multi-Cloud Security and Efficiency. We have our esteemed speakers, panelists over here. Before we invite them to take over, I have a few announcements to make. As announced earlier, three lucky winners have a chance to get, Amazon vouchers worth rupees 2,500. Please stay tuned till the end. You will have to fill a feedback form, and by a lucky draw, we will be getting our three winners. So please stay tuned till the end. You will also be getting a 1 CP credit certificate through the feedback form, which will come towards the end of the discussion. So the criteria for that is please stay till the end, attend the whole webinar, and you will be getting your certificate in your inbox right after you fill the feedback form. And we are going to take up some questions at the end after the discussion. Please put in your questions, thoughts in the chat box, and our experts will address them towards the end. So that those were the announcements. And for the commencement of the webinar, I would like to invite Dr. Lopa Mudra Basu, a seasoned CISO, a cybersecurity thought leader and influencer, independent director, mentor, and international speaker to grace this webinar and moderate the panel. We have our panelists, Mr. Axay Desai, founder, CEO, ObserveID, Ganeshan Ramani, SVP, Mashrek Bank, Manikam K, Senior Director, Security Engineering at Verizon. Thank you so much. Over to you, Lopama.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's been honored to be moderating this webinar. Good morning, friends. Thank you for taking out time and joining us on this Friday sunny morning to discuss the burning topic of evolving security challenges of entitlement management in complex multi-cloud environment and role of CIEM solution to address the pain. Imagine a malicious actor has found to access the weakness in your cloud environment. They penetrate, use it as a launchpad, and wait for an opportunity to exploit the other weakness to mount a full stack attack. A small misconfiguration can lead to a disaster. According to Gartner, 75% of cloud security failure in 2023 are results from inadequate management of identity, access, and privileges. Cloud is the key to effective digitization. It offers an unparalleled experience to the business in terms of efficiency, scalability, and flexibility in a very cost-efficient way. But like any other technology, it has its pros and cons. One of the inherent challenges is managing the secure access for exponentially increasing user role across the various dataset, application, services in this ever-changing, complex, and dynamic environment. To take this discussion ahead, I have with me a panel of industry experts with rich experience cutting across both sides of the table, that is OEM and consumers. Let's welcome Mr. Ganesh Ramani, Senior VP, Mashrek Bank Technology GRC, Manikam K, Senior Director, Security Engineering, Verizon, and Axay Desai, founder, ObserveID. Welcome to the panel, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Lopa.
To start with Axay, considering your rich experience of interfacing with client and addressing their IAM issues through effective solutioning. Ajay, what, in your view, are the major challenge that digital world is facing today related to identity and access management, including the privilege management, considering this complex multi-cloud environment?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lopa, for the questions and introductions. Good morning, everyone. I know it's a Friday morning, so happy Friday to everybody. Weekend is close. So a little bit about myself before I respond to that. I come with almost 28 years of experience in IT industry. Majority of them I've spent in IT security space and domain. Before starting on my own, I worked for large conglomerate. I worked for Anderson, Hitachi, KPMG, you name it, I worked for it. Started a business called Guardian Technology Group about 15 years ago. And from then onwards, we kind of embarked on a journey on ObserveID about 3 years ago. So I just want to make sure that I give a little bit of context before giving my opinion, because I know this space very well, and I've spent pretty much entire my life in the identity security space. So talking about identity security and the privileged access management, right, Dr. Lopa, you said it right. Majority of our panel members, as well as our listener, must have heard buzzwords zero trust, which has now become into the, it's no longer a buzzword that used to be a buzzword. Identity security is actually a center of your zero trust architecture, if you look at it, framework, right? Why is it so? Because of various, if you look at the various analyst report, whether it's Gartner or KuppingerCole or any one of those reports you look at it, 75 to 80% of the breaches occurs in the industry are due to mismanagement of the identity, right? That's the number one reason of majority of the issues occur. The traditional identity access management solution, as we have seen, we're addressing certain components of it, which is like especially regulatory and compliance requirements, where you can run it, as well as it help with a lot of automations to increase the efficiency. But as organizations are moving to the cloud, the remote workforce has become a new norm. And as the industry becomes a global industry, people can be sitting anywhere around the world. I think the identity security has come to the forefront, right? Earlier, it was more of just a compliance and regulatory, as I said before. Now it has become a security concern for everybody. And so identity space has evolved over the years. And privileged access management component is a part of an identity security as well. Very prominent, obviously, you want to ensure the right users have a right access to the data, not only for the privacy reason, but also for the security reason. And also want to make sure they have access only for a period of when it's necessary, not all the time. So there's certain concepts that very well known in the industries are just in case and just in time provisioning, right? So normally what happens in industries, user comes in or identity comes in, they get access just in case if they need something, let's just give it to them. And so that kind of opens up a very large security hole in organizations. And that only has expanded in the sense that now everybody is moving into the cloud. That brought a complete different new dimension, because the security in the cloud is somewhat different because of the dynamic nature of the cloud environments, right? You're deploying the resources at a much faster pace. You're removing at a much faster pace. It's not a direct access because a lot of people are connecting, using the federated identities or infrastructure as a code. So I think the identity security has evolved over the period of time. And certainly the fact that adoptions of the cloud, global workforce, and organizations knowingly or unknowingly ending up into the hybrid environments because they cannot migrate completely into the cloud has really changed the entire dynamics and make it more complex to manage this entire space.
Thank you, Akshay. Very well articulated. Ganesh, and begin with technology risk management with diverse industry experience. According to you, considering the continuous evolving attack surface, what are the major security threats that cloud environment are exposed today? Specifically, if you can touch upon the risks related to both human and non-human identity and access.
Ganeshan, I'm not able to.
I think you're on mute.
Ganeshan is not audible for me.
Yeah.
By the time his connectivity recovered, let's move to Manikyam. Good morning, Manikyam.
Very good morning.
Given that you are in security engineering, my question to you, how zero trust framework being used to boost just-in-time features of privileged access management to enhance the security?
Very good, very good. I think very good morning, everybody, and then glad to be part of the eminent panel. As Axay was indicating, it's a hot topic, and then Dr. Lopa, you agree with me. You started with that, okay, the hot topic in the market today, and it is continued to be the hot topic. Primarily, it starts with an identity, right? So with the note of disclaimer, whatever be the opinions I'm sharing, it is my independent opinion, not Verizon. So coming back to your question, so zero trust is definitely a buzzword in the industry, and everybody aspire to get into the zero trust framework and stuff like that. So if you really look at the CISA framework, right, on zero trust, okay, there are about 5 pillars of zero trust implementation, and people should get ready with. The very first pillar of zero trust is an identity. Okay, so the primary reason is that the zero trust is fundamentally talks about how we really handle the entitlement for the identities. What it is changing is, rather than taking it an implicit entitlement, go for an explicit entitlement, and then always look at the entitlement to be provided after verification, which is nothing but continuous verification. That's what the zero trust is really driving for. So then it naturally boils down to that identity layer have to be really structured. Okay, not limited to the identity piece alone. Okay, identity, access management, entitlement, then governance. Okay, all the 4 areas with. Coming back to this topic, if you really look at the identity lifecycle, it starts with creation or onboarding of identity, and then you need to really stitch the identity with the access, and then the access will enable the entitlement, and that entitlement have to really make the identity owner to really perform the task is really prerequisite for them to do it, right? So bottom line is the entire identity lifecycle have to be really taken care and then well established in order to have the foundational layer ready for the zero trust journey and the travel further on, which will leads to your microsegmentation, governance, monitoring, and related stuff with. So since we are revolving around identity and identity governance, and then cloud entitlement, infrastructure entitlement, this is definitely a required element as the first step in order to start our zero trust journey moving forward.
Great, Manikyam. Moving back to Ganeshan, according to you, considering the continuous evolving attack surface that both the panelists is talking about, what are the major security threats that cloud environment are exposed to, specifically related to human and non-human identity and access?
Lopa ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. I think he is dropped the call for now to, I think, check his microphone issue. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I can take that questions, Dr.
Yeah,
Lopa,
please.
right? So let me kind of circle back on this whole KIM thing, right? I mean, obviously, the purpose of this is kind of educating our attendees and the panelists kind of discuss about the whole cloud infrastructure and entitlement, right? So those who are not familiar with what KIM is KIM is basically a framework, right? Essentially, that's kind of focuses on mitigating and reducing the risk due to overprivileged access in the cloud world, including human as well as non-human identities, as you mentioned, Dr. Lopa, right? So that's in a nutshell is what KIM is all about, and this is where I would love to kind of mention that this is where ObserveID actually strives, and this is what exactly ObserveID does the best. Because we are a cloud native identity first security platform, right? That essentially provides the observability as well as the enforcement in the cloud. And the cloud brings a unique challenges in the sense that if you are familiar, those who are familiar with the traditional identity access management platform, in a traditional world, those environments were very static in the sense that once you install, you put it into a data center, you hardly, other than regular maintenance, there's not a dynamic nature of it. You would spin off of one server and then you would install a database and applications and whatever else. As soon as we start talking about the cloud, that whole dynamics changes because nowadays you can spin off your resources, right, very rapidly using just a script, right? Those who are familiar with Terraform or a Pulumi or whatever it is. So the nature of those entire resource management has changed and it has become a much more dynamic. So what I'm trying to get to is cloud brings a completely different challenge that were not handled by the traditional IAM platform. And this is why Gartner came up with this entire KIM into their hype cycle in 2021, 2022. And even though the fundamental concept is same, is to address the overprivileged access, ensuring the least privilege across the board, the way you handle is a little bit different. You have to be very proactive. You cannot be a reactive. You cannot take a reactive approach. So in the sense you collect the data once a day, once a week kind of a thing, because the resources are much dynamic in that. Also, you are nowadays, serverless functions or whether it's a Kubernetes containers or connecting as using an federated identities. Those issues or challenges didn't exist in the when we were on premises. And so this is why the KIM is really sort of an extension to those platforms. And it has become an essential platform to address your cloud security.
Right. As very rightly mentioned by Akshay, it's very complex environment, and in time configuration and right configuration, I should say, in time provisioning and deprovisioning make the difference. So, Manikyam, visibility and in time remediation are the two defining factor of effectiveness of cloud access governance. What role do AIML play in boosting them?
Okay, I think again it's a hot topic, and everybody's interest area with. But let's look at let me step back, okay, to the foundation and fundamentals. Okay, so the connecting to the identity entitlement, right? Okay, what it starts with in the traditional setup, where we used to have our own data center perimeter. We used to have, when a new employee joining in or a vendor is getting onboarded, there is an identity created, and then they will be given a required level of access to the resources. And then, it is governed by, the central identity and access management team. Sometimes the resource ownership will be able to really provide an entitlement, okay, on demand, as well. Okay, so these are all, well managed, within the defined, periphery. Now with the cloud burst, right, now everybody is adapting to the cloud primarily because of the scalability and elasticity nature, and it's becoming unavoidable now. And then organizations are very cautious enough to take a decision that it's not everybody is going to the cloud at the same time. Okay, there are certain workloads have to be handled within the organization periphery, and then whatever it is, something can go into the cloud where it requires an elasticity. Then those workloads are really getting into the cloud. So naturally, it builds a hybrid operating model of the cloud and then the the native data center operating model. That's one aspect. The other side of looking at, there are multiple cloud providers, and for the companies to really adopt for. And every cloud provider has their unique value proposition coming out of it, let it be on the services side of it, or the cost side of it, or the availability side. There are value proposition with each. So organization in general wanted to really pick up, okay, so what is the business benefit I'll be able to get if I go to the provider A or provider B, or combination of both of them. So we end up having a multi-cloud provider as an ecosystem. Okay, the data center ecosystem extended to the cloud. Now the cloud ecosystem extended to the multi-cloud vendor. Now, if you really look at the identity, if you wanted to onboard an individual now, then whether that individual have to have an access to my data center or the cloud provider A, where the workload is sitting in, or cloud provider B, where the workload is sitting in. And then, whether it is something, an employee or a strategic partner, or it is a service provider, or it is a service account, itself. Okay, it's a non-human account, itself. So which naturally created a complex architecture for the governance of the identities, in general, right? Keeping this complexity, as a problem statement in one side. So let's step back on, how the entire life cycle goes in. Okay, as I was indicating in the beginning, onboarding, operate and maintain, and then offboarding. Okay, these are the major three areas the identity will travel through, right? So when I onboard, then the identity is created. Then in order to that identity to operate and deliver, certain level of privileges have to be really given. So there are defined set of access groups or security groups in terms of cloud CVK, and then those security groups are tied to the identity, and then those security groups are enabled through an entitlement. Okay, and there are fast movement happening. Okay, these identities are they are not going to stay in the same level of identity and access for the lifelong, right? It's a dynamic world. People have to really rotate jobs and then change role. Vendor come in, vendor go out, and then we continue to evolve. A lot of SaaS providers in the market. So it create a little complex area. So manageability become a very, very big challenge. Now we look at, okay, what are the options available for me to do the governance? The very first option is that, okay, let me prepare a rule book, and then say that this identities, or this is vendors, and then this access levels, this workload can be given access. So we end up preparing a matrix, and then use that access matrix and provide grant and access with, which is definitely manageable if it's in hundreds, but we are thousands and more than that. Okay, when it is coming to an identity governance and the identity provider itself. Okay, it is not every identity is handled by the organization itself. There are third-party identity providers, and then those identity also have to be authenticated, because we end up managing every identity. It just become a nightmare, right? And there is no point in managing a third-party identity when we wanted to use a specific service with. So we end up with federating those identities as well, right? So then they also need to be brought into the matrix of the access matrix and the provider access. So the matrix model is not scalable, becoming a challenge. Then the next step, people logically think about, okay, what are the automation possibilities, right? So when I want really automation possibilities, it always starts with the provisioning. Okay, so when I do the provisioning, refer the role book, add something called a role-based access control, okay, RBAC, become a picture, and then people started adapting it. Now the RBAC is evolved, to an ABAC, okay, attributes-based access control, which is nothing but the same rule, what we talk about. What is identity? What is the compute, the people are end up using? What resource they need, and what the business reason for using this? And how do I really verify that identity have to be entitled to the specific access level granted with, right? So if I have a complete visibility of the ecosystem, then I can able to write rule in a manual. So this is where we need something, an ML, to come in to learn, okay, what are the existing, identities, learn them, and what is the pattern, and what are the, current entitlements, for those things, and then add an intelligent component into that, which is what, AI is, okay? So when we really have the thought process of end user governance or the identity governance managed with a complex architecture, built with an automation, built with the attribute-based access model, add an intelligent element to really track after the provisioning is made, okay, whether those entitlements are intact, is it really required, is it satisfying the least privilege, is it satisfying the need to know? These are the fundamental security principles, and every practitioner should, follow that, right? So you keep adding the intelligent element into that, so which makes the, identity lifecycle and then governance, made simple, which become very dynamic and, just in time, okay, provisioning. Okay, so you add a time bounding element into that, so which is a seamless in operation to do it. It's not, for explaining it is very simple, but it requires a lot of, preparation, and that is where, there are service providers, coming in, okay, specializing on, say, for example, okay, CIEM is a specific area really talking about how the governance of, the entitlement can be done seamlessly with the scale of, operation.
Very enlightening
So
input, Manikyam. Hope Ganeshan is back now. Still,
yeah,
you are
Dr.
not
Lopa, if you don't
audible.
mind, can I take a 1 minute to applaud what Manikan just mentioned? I think you explained it very well, Manikan. I think you kind of laid out the entire user life cycle or identity security together. I think one thing I wanted to point out, there are a lot of discussions about the hybrid environments, RBAC, ABAC, provisioning, deprovisioning, least privilege. I think, those who are not familiar with this may get overwhelmed that, oh my God, it's like, this is a complex. I think the reality now, and this is where the evolution comes, right? So the platforms such as ObserveID, we have a converged platform. So what does that mean, right? So not only provide an end-to-end user lifecycle management, integrating with the HR system based on the various attributes, giving all the access, but we also have a privileged access management component where not only you're vaulting your password, you're rotating password, you're reporting the session, and then also a governance module. So that's where the evolution has come. And then, you will hear this over and over: converged identity, identity fabric, identity security. At the end of the day, I think majority of the organizations are moving and looking for that one platform that provides an end-to-end identity security to cover that entire depth and breadth of IT. So even though it's a complex process, I think there are ways that any organization, small, medium, large, can address this security relatively easily.
Very well summarized, Akshay. So quickly, again, a very quick response I'm looking from your side, Manikyam. When it is coming to the cloud security posture management with regards to attack surface in multi-cloud environment, what is your perspective on that?
Okay, so cloud have to be really dissected into, various areas, right? So one is that the infrastructure, component, and then, the identity lifecycle component, and then the workload, protection, right? And the CSPM is a kind of, as a broader, scale, focuses on, okay, the overall the security posture and then the management associated with that. So there may be, we need to really break down the CSPM into the specific areas of, specialization, and then really look at it, okay, what, kind of focus have to be given looking at the current attack surface and then the type of data being, handled with, and then specific to the organization, domain, goes with. Yeah, we can definitely double click this each of the verticals, specifically, but if you had also something specific, I can be able to really double click on.
Right. We are approaching towards the end of our conversation. So I think most of the inputs are very, very useful for the all listener. Now, we had a kind of, discussion where we talk about the identity access management, its governance, cloud posture management, on all other things. Now, when it is coming to the challenges related to entitlement management, considering the complex and dynamic nature of the cloud, Ganesh, if you quickly, articulate what are the major threats or technology risks associated with this area?
Yeah, so am I audible now, Dr. Lopa
Yeah,
and team? Is
clearly,
it okay?
clearly.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened in the network. So I think it was a good conversation. I was kind of listening to Akshay and Monica. So when it comes to the kind of threats, right, and especially coming from a risk management background, when we go to a kind of a multi-cloud environment, because from the on-premises we have gone into multi-cloud, operating the controls has been a big challenge, right? So within the organization, you have a structured framework where all the controls are operated by the organization themselves or their vendors. But when we start moving to cloud, the biggest challenges you have the organization operating certain controls. You will have some cloud team operating some controls. You have your cloud service provider operating some of the controls, and cloud service providers, outsourced partners will be operating some controls. So it becomes very tricky. So what we need to do as a kind of a cybersecurity or professionals is like, we need to understand how the control framework transform, who are the responsible parties to kind of operate these controls. So that is a big ticket item. The risks which are coming in is because people lack the understanding who is operating what, and if they fail to operate the control, it becomes a challenge. For example, in cloud cases, if I look into the identity and access management space especially, what happens is one wrong configuration or one way of authentication or authorization made wrong, you expose your complete instance or the bucket either into a public cloud or even in a private cloud. An unauthorized person can easily look into it, right? So how the platform keys are being managed properly, how the high privileged IDs are being properly managed, what kind of, if it is a PaaS service, what kind of virtualization, and what kind of what kind of databases, what kind of VMs, how are we doing it? So it's always a kind of a complex challenge. So what I feel is like you have to have a clear understanding of your cloud workloads and who is operating what controls, and ensure that the responsible people agrees to operate those controls and monitor centralizedly, or have these kind of tools and aggregators to help you to facilitate to operate those controls. Yeah, that's my initial viewpoint.
Thank you, Ganesh. Now, Akshay, you already spoke about the critical role played by CIEM. Considering the complexity of the environment, do you feel that the current CIEM available in the security market is capable solution to address the overall challenge?
I believe so. I think as the cloud evolves, obviously there are new platforms that come into the marketplace that are trying to address as well. Again, cloud is a huge topic, and it's evolving as we speak, right? I mean, if you look at it, when AWS started, they had maybe 1,000 services. As of today, they have 30,000 plus services. And now we have, of course, multi-cloud. We're talking about Oracle Cloud is there. There is a Microsoft Cloud is there, and then there is an Alibaba, and I can go on and on and on. And so what happens is the organizations, knowing or unknowingly, because they want the best out of these cloud service providers, they will end up into more than one cloud. In fact, I was reading one of the article published by another analyst company. 75% of the companies who are in the cloud has 2 or more clouds. Now, Ganeshan talked about you need to know who has what control. Well, so you need an observability. You need an ability to see all this stuff. First of all, if a large organization or even a mid organization, if you don't have a visibility, you cannot really take any actions because you really don't know what's out there to begin with, right? And the second thing is, as these cloud service providers evolve themselves, the majority of the policies and roles that they are providing out of the box, according to, again, various study and research reports, are 2.5 to 3 times more than what an identity needs to begin with, which means as soon as you're in a cloud and you create a user and assign some policies, your surface attack area is 2.5 to 3 times more than what it needs to be, because you're not following the basic principle of least privilege. you're violating very fundamental core component of your security, essentially, right? And so it becomes very important to monitor these controls, who's doing what, map that with the entitlements, and recommend or provide a right policy to those individuals or those identities in order to reduce that surface attack area. And then, of course, Mani can talk about just-in-time provisioning, which is a huge, because you want to ensure that your users or your identities that has a high privilege are managed using a just-in-time provisioning. So whenever they need that access, the access is granted, and then entitlement goes away. I think that's a very important and critical component of it. So yes, cloud service moving to the cloud, and cloud service providers are bringing a unique challenges to that. But I think, industry is ready to take on those challenges, and there is always innovation. And we are working towards the same thing. That's one of our goals, is to be leader in providing cloud security. That's what we are trying to do as well.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. We are end of the conversation, and it's really a great and insightful discussion. Just to quickly wrap up, cloud is a continuously evolving service, and organizations are opting for it because it's a business need today to quickly ramp up or ramp down. But challenges, though it's provide the facility like high scalability, high flexibility, and very cost efficient solution, but a small misconfiguration can lead to a disaster. So having good tools is not only the key to manage the cloud entitlement, it is access entitlement. It is very, very important to have a proper monitoring capability to manage the provisioning and deprovisioning in time. Also, overall monitoring of the cloud is important. Now, obviously, automation and supported by artificial intelligence and machine learning is playing a critical role. The environment is going to be more and more complex over the time, and it is not possible for human being to address this huge need of security. Because why I'm referring to security, because the entire identity security is center or core heart of the entire cloud security. So considering that, we need to have a good governance and proper set of skilled, knowledgeable people to manage the overall platform. With this, handing over the stage to Axay for a quick tour of ObserveID. Thank you, ObserveID and CyberFraud, for inviting us and hosting us today and giving the platform to share our thoughts. Also, thank you all for spending your valuable morning with us. All is yours, Axay.
Thank you, Dr. Lopa. So I just want to kind of point out that, you talked about the misconfiguration, a small misconfiguration causing a havoc, right, in the cloud world. And I'll give you one real example, actually, that we noticed that one of our customers that we were working with, one of their privileged account got hacked in the cloud world, in very well-known cloud service providers, right? The account that was used, someone spin off programmatically 4,000 compute servers within an hour, okay? And that just for one single SKU in one single region. Now imagine how many SKUs and how many regions are there in any cloud service provider. And nobody, including the cloud service provider, realized it for 24 hours. Now put your organization into that conditions, that what sort of damage that can cause, not only financial, but your reputations, which is the number one thing that you're trying to protect as an organization, is to protect your reputations. So not only reputations are at stake, and significant amount of cost that you incur. And the other disadvantage, as I said before, is with this cloud service provider, they are evolving themselves, and They're not there yet. So you have to actually remove all those compute servers. You have to do one at a time. You can't even highlight that, okay, these are not my needed, and go and remove it. So you can imagine the chaos you're going to get into. And on top of it, you got to deal with insurance and God knows what else, right? And for the God's sake, if the data is compromised or encrypted, now you got to pay the ransomware. I mean, it can go on and on. So I think, you rightfully said so that a single misconfigurations can cause a lot of headache for a lot of people if it's not managed correctly. All right, with that being said, I will share my screen. Please let me know if everyone can see my screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah? Okay, so before I showcase a quick demo, I wanted to kind of put a couple of slides here about our. So at ObserveID, what are the challenges that we're trying to address? And this is the same as what Manikan had explained earlier, right? So we have two solutions. One is what we call is a converged identity platform. And the challenge with that is when Manikan was explaining the entire process about provisioning, deprovisioning, RBAC, ABAC, and governance, the traditional what we saw is organizations would have to go and acquire these multiple platforms to get that end-to-end security and meet your regulatory and compliance requirements. And so we realized that it wasn't feasible for a lot of different reasons. Not only it was cost prohibitive for a lot of companies, you need a specialized skill set to manage them. And the implementations were too long. In some cases, it would run for months or years, right? So return on investment wasn't there. And this is where the idea of ObserveID was born, is to create a converged platform that can do all of it, including the privileged access, your governance, and ability to create those reports on the fly using simply filter mechanism, right? You don't have to have a developer sitting there or a specialized skill set to create those. So that's one of our solutions. And the second solutions we have been talking about CIEM, of course, right? And I think we have kind of explained that very thoroughly. The challenges that we're facing is lack of observability, number one. If you're in a multi-cloud, the cloud providers use a different IAM model. They all have their own IAM model. Well, in one case is a resource means an account in somewhere else, right? So the terminologies are different, the models are different, and so providing a unique or universal model that can scale across the multi-cloud. And then most importantly, optimizing your entitlements, which is the fundamental reasons why organizations need CIEM, is ensuring the right people have a right access and just only what they need and no more than that, all right? And then providing automatic remediations if that is not the case. So those are the two platforms that we have. I want to kind of highlight those and the challenges that we see in the marketplace that we're trying to address. With that being said, I know I have only 10, 15 minutes left, so I will not go into a very detail, but this is just a dashboard of our platform. I logged in using our Active Directory account, and I have two tabs open. This is our CIEM platform. As you can see, we have in our environments, we have AWS, and you can have as many subscription, as many accounts that you can onboard, as well as Azure, as you can see. It provides, as soon as you log in, it provides a high-level risk score. Where does your organization stand from a cloud identity security posture perspective, right? And then it gives you a lot of findings that you can start addressing and you can measure over the period of time, which becomes very important, especially to manage that, hey, you are working in improvising your identity security and cloud security posture at the end of the day, right? What you're seeing here is very self-explanatory. How many accounts are there? How many are stale? What are the different active users? What are the critical users? We have various algorithms that are built into our platform. We talked about ML and things like that, that identifies how many users are critical users, right? And we talked about the federated identities quite a lot into this one. So we actually monitor those federated identities as well. Various findings, as you can see here, we kind of highlight all of those findings. The beauty of our platform and how we differentiate ourselves from anyone else is this is a very proactive platform in the sense it's near real time. If somebody is creating a policy, modifying a role or modifying a policy, creating a user, spinning off an EC2 instance, we immediately identify. We not only show you a notification here, but we analyze it. Is this overprivileged account? Are those all the standard configurations are met? Is it the encryptions enabled? Is it not publicly available, right? Those kind of misconfiguration we immediately identify, and we provide an auto remediations already. So one of the things that we always hear from our customers as well as the potential prospect, hey, there are a lot of dashboards. I get tons of dashboards that tell me what I need to do, but I don't have time to do it. Well, we're taking care for you, right? So not only we are observing, we're enforcing, and we are auto remediating. We identify various risks, right? There are various criticality as well as what are the risks. And if I show you here, we have almost 20 different types of risk that we identify. Not only the non-compliant, and we compare it into various frameworks, security frameworks, including GDPR, as well as the HIPAA and CIS standards, as well as the NIST standard. But we also have, as you can see, baseline configuration, data exfiltrations, privilege escalations, right? And we keep adding it continuously into this one. We also allow our customers to add their own risk, right? If there are any specific requirements for a customer. So there's a lot of flexibility that's built into our platform as well. And as you can see here, we have an intelligent threat detection component built in. So if somebody is normally not creating any serverless architecture or spinning up any compute servers, all of it does that, right? So we have an ability to identify that anomalies and take automated actions there as well. We show all of the principles. One of the example I gave that 5,000 compute servers were created and no one realized it, and cloud service providers don't even send you an email or doesn't even know. Well, we immediately identify those number of principles that you have, how many are active, what are the issues, as well as the compliance aspect that I spoke about it, right? So these are the various compliance that we cover, not only PCI, various NIST standard, AWS, et cetera, et cetera. So in a nutshell, this is our platform. This is a CIEM platform. We provide a global search. We also have a mechanism where you can go and identify your findings. Very easy to navigate, very intuitive platform, right? So I can simply go here and just say, okay, I need a project level remediations, automations. I search for it, right? It'll go and identify it. For example, S3 bucket should be enabled. And as you can see here, we have an automatic remediations. You can pick and choose the resource you want to apply, or you can apply to all resource, or you can simply take the commands and put it into your cloud service provider and use their way of changing the policy, right? So we provide all those flexibility into our platform, as well as you can create a ticket if you need to specific change migrations if you need to follow it. So we have all those ability that are built into our platform as well. I know I'm kind of going a little bit far. I just want to give the glimpse of it into what we do. Here is, as you can see, user with an access to, for example, permissions, right? So you can search on it and you can see, okay, this is the user has it, access to permissions. You can go and click on all the findings for the related. If the user is part of certain policies group, we identify all of it for you, right? And then we have a really nice looking mind map view that you can drill down. It gives you a 360 visibility across the board. And we go down to a very fine grain entitlement, right? So we're not, and this is how we identify every action that user performed over the period of time, 120 days, 180 days, and we map each and every actions with an entitlement. And this is why we can either take an automated actions, or we make a recommendation that the user has so much permissions. In reality, user is using only these things, and here's the new policy that user should be having in order to reduce your surface attack area. So that's in a nutshell. I wanted to kind of give you from that perspective. I mentioned about the Converse platform as well. Again, this was covered pretty well by Manikan. I will just give you a quick glance there. Once you're logged in, you're presented with this dashboard. This has a complete workflow approval process. This can integrate with your HR system based on the various attributes, your locations, your title, your department. We automate your entire access of the organizations. So not only it brings in automations, operational efficiency, it increases your security, because when somebody leaves, now you don't have to go and search well, what access this user had? And half of the time you don't even know, right? Our platform manages it all. For example, I'll show you this access. Oh, just logged out here. I'll log back in. As you can see, every access within the organizations is shown into our platform, SharePoint, Azure. And we also cover, by the way, if you have a detached system, if you have, that's one of the typical problem that we see, that custom applications, AS400 or whatever those are, usually traditional IAM platforms do not integrate with them. We provide a built-in RPA module that can be used as well. And as you can see, a box and all other SaaS applications are integrated. So entire depth and breadth of IT we try to cover. And then here also we have a similar mind map view where we can manage the entire history of the users. We have a really nice looking mind map view that you can drill down and gives you a lot more details on the entitlements your user has. We can tell you if it hasn't been used for more than 180 days or X number of days. You can color code it and you can start a whole offboarding or removal of that access right from our platform. So there are a lot of functionality that are built in. If there is an interest, we'd love to do a deep dive demo. But as you can see, we have 4 entire full-blown workflow is built into our platform as well. And this is where the rollback access control that Mani can again explain. It's a very easy way to create, very intuitive platform. Just click, 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 right? And then what we call is a birthright role. So when we see a identity hired into an HR or any of your contract management systems or ticketing systems, right? We can integrate with anything. We immediately identify various attributes, and based on that, we can go and assign all the access based on the birthright criteria that's been assigned. Okay. Birthright is nothing but a bundle of either roles or policies, or it could be various applications, databases, everything can be bundled and access can be granted. So that's in a nutshell what we have 2 platforms. I want to kind of give you a quick overview. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Axay. So since we have 6 minutes left, I see a couple of questions in the webinar chat and the Q&A. So can you proceed with the questions, or over to you, Dr. Lopa, you want to moderate this any further?
Sejal, please go ahead.
Sure.
If you take a quick, if you take a quick 30 seconds to really sensitize the importance of the overall identity associated to the breach aspect, right? I think most of you are aware about, Verizon publishes the DBIR, okay, the database breach investigation report. The most recent report of year 2023 talks about almost 79% of the breaches involve the human element, right? And it leads to configuration, misconfiguration, and then the overprivileged or those related in aspect. Of that, okay, there are 49% purely involves the credential related. I just wanted to pass some of these stats to sensitize the importance of the identity and entitlement management practices. Thank you.
Yeah. So just quickly adding to that, we are talking about the highly sophisticated attack and data losses and the increasing and continuously evolving technology and regulatory posture. But unless until there is a basic hygiene maintained within the territory of a business, it is really, really, not so easy to penetrate within the environment unless until there is a misconfiguration or ignorance to exploit those opportunities. Over to Sejal.
Thank you so much, everyone. A very insightful and a wonderful discussion indeed. So we have a common hot question in the chat that is for Mr. Yu Akshay. Is your solution a CSPM or it limits only IAM?
Yeah, great question, right? So, CSPM, CASB, CIEM, I think we have heard all these buzzwords. I think the boundaries between these solutions are getting blurry and blurry every day, to be honest, right? So our platform definitely has a CSPM capability. Although fundamentally it was developed and used for CIEM, which is where we differentiate ourselves big time, because we are not familiar with any platform in the marketplace that is really doing a real-time evaluations of entitlement and taking in automated actions, right? There are other platforms that do a batch collections and things like that. We believe that in the cloud world, that really doesn't apply, because, as I explained before, resources are much more dynamic in the cloud, and so the collection process doesn't really work very well. And in our platform, we want it to be more a proactive platform versus a reactive platform. And so we have taken a completely different approach to our platform, but it does have a capability of CSPM as well as CIEM. Good question.
Okay, wonderful. So any more questions? Anyone who wants to unmute themselves and speak with the experts, please raise the hand. You can see an option on the screen, and we will give you the mic access. Or else, please,
So
use
I
the
see one
comments.
question and Q&A. So it's from Omkar. How is the mind map different from an MXDR solution collecting logs in real time and analyzing and reporting? Yeah. So I think I'd say you can take it.
Yeah, so I think the mind map that we have is our entire platform revolves around identity, right? So that's what our platform is all about. So who is logging in, where they're logging in from, what access do they have, are they using the access, they have it or not, entitlement assigned, do they have it or not? The XDR platforms do not really cover that specifically identity component of it. So this is where we differentiate.
Thanks, Axay. And we have one more question from Mahesh. What is the pricing module for this to be? Right.
Yeah, great question. So pricing module depends on two different things, right? So if you talk about the Converse platform, our pricing module depends on, it's basically the way we price is depending upon how many identities, as well as how many applications you're trying to onboard, right? Those are the couple of criteria that we use in order to come up with the pricing. The CIEM, the KIM platform, is basically only depending on the workloads, right? How much workload do we have? How many different cloud providers you're using it? So that depends on the number of workloads.
Okay,
Right.
the next
Yeah,
question
continue,
is, does ObserveID support federated identities as well?
Of course. Yep, absolutely. We support the federated identities, and that's why we extensively cover even during the discussions that's definitely one of the challenge that majority of the organizations face, because when a user comes using a federated identities, they don't really have visibility at all. And we provided visibility. We not only provide the visibility, we also track what they're doing it and actually make recommendations and take an automated action as well if needed to be.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Would you like to still, say or add something more? I can see you have raised your hand. Please put it in the chat if you want us to give you the mic access. Meanwhile, okay.
Meanwhile, any last thought from you, Ganeshan?
No, I think Akshay summed up very nicely. So the thing is, like, we need to understand what are the identities, and the identity governance is very important. And gone are the days where we can do identity governance maybe in a piece of an Excel sheet and stuff, because the environments have gone complexity very high. And of course, you have multiple cloud kind of service providers, multiple IDs, and again there are emerging technologies like RPA bots and all, who have non-interactive accounts and other accounts. So it's not only about the human, the non-human accounts are also getting highly increased. And a lot of regulation says that you need to have IAM governance, access control matrix, periodic access review. So all those items add to the complexity to the current framework. So tools, a combination of tools, framework, methodologies, and practices is a way forward to solve those problems. Yeah. That's my because I'm seeing the questions and the way we are headed to. Of course, the CSPM is also coming up as a need of the hour. And again, within CSPM, these control domains and controls will be a clear part of it. And again, when you kind of measure the compliance of your cloud workloads, across all control domains, including identity and access. These building blocks or the Legos will tell you the overall picture. That's my humble opinion. Thank you, Dr. Lopa.
Yeah, excellent summary, Ganeshan. Good job.
Okay, Omkar, we have given you the mic access. Please proceed to your question.
Hi, thank you, everyone. My question is to Mr. Akshay. Sir, first of all, thank you for answering my previous question. I just have a follow-up on that. So,
Please.
you mentioned while you were explaining the difference between the MXDR solution and your ObserveID solution, you mentioned that that it's very similar because I work with a company called Gradient Cyber, and we've recently integrated Azure and GCP. We've been doing AWS for a while now, right?
Okay.
So the mind map is something very similar to what we do. So and more, right? For example, if you want a cloud infrastructure, but you have an existing authentication mechanism which you don't need to migrate to cloud, but you can maybe integrate it with your Active Directory, right? We also do that because we bring in logs from different places, Active Directory, network, cloud, EDR, everything, and put them together to build a story. So what I was trying to understand is the mind map that you showed is very similar to the data that we get, how we collect data, and yeah, definitely different than how we represent it visually. But I understand that it's similar data. I have a couple of questions for you. One is, how can you talk a bit about integration with different kinds of existing authentication or identity management systems with your solution? Secondly, is your blocking and prevention mechanism inline or is it outline?
Yeah, a great question, right? So we can definitely integrate with any IAM providers, right? So CIEM or a CIEM solution is sort of an extension, in my opinion, is an extension to your IAM strategy, your identity strategy. So if you have an organization that already has implemented or have implemented identity access management solutions, CIEM can sit on top of it and can integrate with your IAM providers. There's no problem with that. Because CIEM platforms are specifically focused on the cloud, while your identity providers may be doing provisioning, deprovisioning across the board, a lot of everything that's sitting on premises as well. So the CIEM can be an extension to your IAM. So we can certainly integrate that. Good question. What was your second question, Omkar?
You mentioned about the assessment of security of these cloud infrastructures and how the system would take measures to prevent certain loopholes, right? So I wanted to check if it is in line that as in it happens as and when an activity is happening, or is it more outline where the activity is first detected and then you take measures to block further activities, like future activities from that point onwards?
Yeah. Great question, right? So, it depends on your policies, right? So if you have defined the policies that, hey, and I'll give you an example. For example, no one can deploy any resources in a certain region, or you cannot deploy more than 2 compute server, right? If your policy dictates then you can prevent it. But if you don't have any policy in place, then we do detect after the fact. So in the sense, as soon as somebody deploys a serverless functions or deploys an EC2 instance, we identify immediately and we can report it back, right? So you can do it both ways. You can control it through the policies and prevent from happening itself. But if you don't have any policy in place, after the fact, as soon as it occurs, we pick it up on the log, and we not only send the notifications, we will also provide the findings and can take an automated action.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you.